Welcome to this special episode of Politically Basic. I'm off-site, still down here in the heart of LA in Inglewood, and I'm with Jenny Rae Le Roux today. She's running for Congress in California's 47th district. That spans Huntington, Laguna, Irvine. It's the most beautiful area of Southern California, some may say, and really the Orange County area. She's also the newly appointed executive director of CalDoge, what Steve Hilton started. She's an author, a businesswoman, a strategic advisor. She's been endorsed in her congressional run from the California GOP and the Orange County GOP. She's a Columbia Business School MBA holder. No big deal. She's super smart. And we are going to have a great conversation about all of these things. Jenny Rae, thank you so much for joining me on Politically Basic today.
It's an honor to be here. I can't wait to share the backstory of all the stories. We have a lot to talk about.
We do, and this is Politically Basic. Basics is where we live. And so let's start with the basics.
Love it.
Tell us about how you went from successful business owner, you're a wife and a mom. Why in the world would you want to get into the political arena?
I love it. Well, I was a closet conservative. I would have never told somebody what my political party was. And actually, when I first started to think about a run for office, I took a poll of my friends and family, and they couldn't peg me. They couldn't figure out where I was on the political spectrum. And I did that for survival in California. I thought that to be in business in California, I needed to register as a no-party preference voter. It didn't matter how I voted. What mattered was what people saw on the outside. And so for years here, for more than a decade, I was just focused on survival in the business. When 2020 came around, I started to ask questions, really for the first time. In fact, in January of 2020, I couldn't have told you the name of our governor. I was not engaged. I voted in order to complain about taxes and the direction of California. That was it. That was my only reason to vote. And the engagement came when I started to say, who's in charge of these decisions that are impacting my kids? I have 3 boys. They're now 13, 9, and 6. They were in school. We had all the, are we going back to school questions as a family? But I was also really curious about how I would have done differently what Newsom was doing in leading the state. And we were all in COVID together. There were a lot of questions that were being asked, but I think COVID was really one of the first times that we in California started to look to other states. And instead of being the cool aunt on the block, right, the ones that were always the ones with the answers, with the biggest economy, with the biggest everything, we were starting to ask, actually, maybe we don't do things the best way. And it was really the beginning of the exodus of California as well. And so I started asking questions for about a year. I went around to every single person that I knew that I thought was capable and qualified and a great speaker and a good negotiator. And I said, hey, you should run for office. And I would pick an office that I'd been researching, right? You should run for assembly. You should run for mayor. You should run for governor. And about a year later, the pointing finger turned on me. It turned out that I was the one that I was waiting for. And ultimately, there's nobody coming to save us. We have to work in this state to make a difference. And so I filed to run for governor. I filed to run, and really I got wet behind the political ears as I was in that campaign. I traveled to every one of our counties in the state, all 58 counties. I met with people. I figured out where our infrastructure is and where it is not politically. I registered as a Republican. I came out of my conservative closet and said, this is who I am. This is what I believe. I believe in smaller government. I believe in local control. I believe in parents' rights. These are the things that I think we should have in order to make a difference in California. And it was off to the races.
That's a really brilliant strategy, actually. I've worked with candidates for a couple of decades almost now on the backside of campaigns, media training, messaging, strategy. But I've seen how a lot of them operate. And it's usually the person who tries to get other people to run for office who's the best fit. They just don't necessarily have the ego, really, to push themselves forward until they realize that they're absolutely needed. But I love the idea of running for a special election, right? That was Newsom's recall, and getting to know the state that way. What fabulous training ground for you. That was amazing.
It was. And really, training in politics is not like training in business. Training in business is you take a little bite size and then you move up the ladder and you get another deal or you get another project and it's bigger and you have more responsibility. Training in politics is you get your teeth kicked in. Really, it is. And it's just endurance. It is an endurance game. How long can you stick in the fight and make a difference and keep coming back for more? And you don't get applause. Nobody cheers for you. You get death threats and everything else that comes with it. And really, what I found as I was traveling on the ground was we haven't done enough to work to save the state. What we think is that we've done everything. What we've been told is that Democrats have a stranglehold on California. It's not true. We have opportunity to make a difference, and we just didn't have the right people, the right infrastructure, the right message. We had to change everything in order to begin to make a difference in California. And so that's why I decided to stick around. And a lot of people get their teeth kicked in the first time, they quit right afterwards. But after it happens the first time, what's coming. So I just embraced it. We dug in and we said, hey, this state is worth it. We're going to stick around. In fact, earlier this year, we had an escape house outside of the state that we sold. We're all in. California is the future of this nation. We have to fight for it.
Well, good for you. And you've run the political gauntlet, as we call it, and you're still around. So you've got a tough shield, a thick skin. And it sounds like it's made you very well equipped for this run. This congressional run is, I'm sure, very different from when you ran for governor in the recall election. Let's talk about your district. So 47 covers Huntington, Costa Mesa, Seal Beach, Laguna, parts of Irvine, if I've got that
right. So the
right.
new 47 actually doesn't have Huntington and Seal Beach and some of those beautiful places anymore, sadly. There are a lot of those folks will support what I'm doing in the 47th because it's one of the most winnable districts in the state.
So you're talking post-Prop 50 redistricting.
Post-Prop 50 redistricting is the race that I'm running, which is all of the Lagunas, Newport Coast, Irvine, Tustin and North Tustin, down to Dana Point. And it includes the whole central part of Orange County. In fact, my district is the only Orange County district that is entirely within Orange County. So it's right there in the middle of the county. And it is a spectacular place. We're home to biotech and aerospace. We have the University of Irvine, California. That is, by the way, one of the key fronts. Today, we have tabling that's starting for this election. And so we have never done anything as Republicans at our universities as active as we've been recently. And so there's a lot of, like I mentioned before, infrastructure that we've needed to build. One of the biggest differences is that I don't stay in a hotel. At night, I get to sleep in my own bed in my house in Irvine. And that's delightful. I can drive the entire district all day long. I can be with people in their businesses, in their homes. We're backyard barbecuing all the way up to doing stuff in boats in Newport Harbor. It's an incredible experience. And so in every race, there's the opportunity to go a little bit deeper. In California, there was wide and deep at the same time, deep on issues, wide on geography. Here, it's a different moment. I think there will always be a learning curve. It's one of the things I actually love about politics is that if you're willing, people will educate you. They will tell you about the state of healthcare today. They will tell you about the state of the oil and gas industry. They will tell you about environmental consulting. If you're willing to listen, you have a lot to learn. And I have really enjoyed that part of the process.
Well, it's a stunning area. And for people who haven't been there and you're in California, you need to go because right out of the gate, it's just one of the most beautiful and fun and bright areas in our entire state with great people, very family friendly. It's just a tremendous area. So it must be fun to run to represent such an amazing, incredible
it's an absolute
chunk of
honor.
land.
We have a lot of economic success. We have really competitive schools. One of the things that's really fascinating is that we also have a lot of transplants from other parts of California. Orange County is considered to be one of the last frontiers for the good old days of California. We are a well-governed county. There are a lot of great schools and opportunities. And I've met with 3 people this week alone just talking through the fact that they left LA County or they left another place in California to move to Orange County because they wanted a school that was open during COVID, or they wanted their kids to be able to walk to the public school in the morning. And the lack of public safety fear, the fact that it's a well-governed county, the fact that the county is not bankrupt, it was originally a number of years ago, but we've come out of that. The fact that it's just well-governed and well-managed demonstrates Orange County is growing. It's one of the only growing counties in the state, and we are seeing some real challenges to that growth just because of what's happening statewide. But overall, it is a bright, shining star in a sea of black holes.
Interesting. So the 47th has a lot going right. What do you think are the biggest challenges, and what will you focus on fixing and bringing to the table if you're elected?
Absolutely. Well, my work with CalDoge really led me directly into this congressional race. And it's something that a lot of people in the district have expressed a concern about. And it's not a Republican issue. This is a very bipartisan issue. They want to know, where is our money going? Because there's one issue that they're talking about, which is, what is the return on the investment that I make for being in California? And for a lot of people in our district, they could go anywhere. They could live in Tennessee or Texas or Florida or New York. They could live anywhere in the world. They could take their companies with them. They could take their families with them. So they choose to live in California. They choose to live in Orange County, and they're asking, what do I get for this? And what's happening with CalDoge is that they're figuring out, actually, we're not getting what we should. Our money is getting funneled through this archaic system. Honestly, it's amazing what we're able to find with AI now is demonstrating how this has been built, of the California government taking federal money, running it through financial intermediaries, and then distributing it in micro amounts to thousands of nonprofits who are completely unaccountable for any of their results. And so that's what people are asking is, great, okay, I'm not unwilling to pay the highest taxes to have the best schools and the best streets, but where is the money going? And so financial oversight really brought me to my run for Congress, because I began to realize, look, we can fix a lot of problems in California. We will continue to call out the truth of who is involved. California has a governance issue. But if the money comes from Congress, it's actually Congress's job to conduct the oversight. And that is the piece that has been missing. And a lot of the reason that you do have that issue is that a lot of folks that are in Congress are lawyers or politicians who have come up through the system who don't have any financial training. And so for me, this all seems obvious. Like how, you just look at the financial statements and you can immediately see glaring errors. It's like reading a fun puzzle. But for a lot of people, they can't see it. They don't understand it. And so we have to actually, one of the crazy things about what we're doing at Doge is that we have to ask for data for everything that spends federal dollars. We have to do Freedom of Information Act requests. I can't for the life of me figure out a reason why we should do that. Why is it not just public? Mm-hmm. Sure, defense spending, one thing. Everything else, the entirety of the rest of our budget, we should know how much people are paying for paper clips. If they're paying $700 for a box of paper clips, we should understand why. And we really need to understand how to capture that money back. So as we're discovering, fraud is actually incredibly widespread. It's not just waste. We have these comparative resources across multiple states. And I want to go to Congress so that the American people can get their money back, and or we can spend it on things that will actually make a difference for the future, like education.
What a perfect fit you are to run for Congress then, having the background, the financial industry and world expertise to go in and address the very need that the people of your district are asking to be filled. I love this.
It's crazy. We had no idea. and it's such a great opportunity to have these conversations at every level, because really, at the end of the day, right, everything comes back to, it's the economy, stupid. What are gas prices? That matters to everyone. What are grocery prices? What happens with our taxes? Are we funding public safety? What's happening with immigration? Everything has a financial component to it. And Congress is not only about money, it's also about message, and it's also about the culture that we want to build in this nation. But ultimately, if you have ever done budgeting work with anybody, if you've done it with a company like I have, or if you've done it with people at home with families, a lot through my church, people have come to me over the years and said, hey, can you look at our budget? Can you look at our numbers? Can you look at our finances? And finances really represent the priorities that you have. So our priorities as a nation are reflected in the finances of what we fund through Congress.
Absolutely. So the incumbent Rep. Dave Min.
Yes.
Do I have that right?
You do.
Okay. So Rep. Dave Min is the current congressman in your district. He is running again. What do you think he has done to address any of these economic issues or questions? He's only been in for the first term, the 2 years,
yes.
Correct?
He's done absolutely nothing. And that's not me just calling him out on it. He's actually said that on purpose. He said, I can't do anything in Congress because Trump is in power. And I think he fundamentally doesn't understand the job. He was a former state senator who came from the Sacramento swamp where he was in the supermajority, and he could do anything he wanted because he had complete control. And so if he thought of a bill in the morning, by the afternoon, it was in committee. By the next day, it was funded, and then it was on the governor's desk. I mean, it was just streamlined in Sacramento. Well, your job in Congress is a different job. You are there to represent your district. And it actually doesn't matter. In fact, one of my political mentors, Doug LaMalfa, did a fantastic job of this. He worked with every president. He worked with every speaker of the House when they were in favor and when they were out of favor. He was a Republican, but it was not always Republican controlled. And he understood the mission. He had one district that he was there to serve, and he would do anything he could to serve his district. And that's actually a big opportunity and opening in my race against Dave Min, is that he has come out and just said, hey, I can't do anything. Well, the people of my district are not happy with that. Republican or Democrat, he could do something. They know he could. They've had representatives that have done something for them before. And so it's an unacceptable response. It's the same thing with what he stands against instead of standing for anything. He has no plans for what he wants to do. It's just, I will fight Trump. He's not even a great Trump fighter, to be honest. If I just have to call him on something, I'd say, look, you're not even good at this, dude. But if he were, still, that's unacceptable to my district. They want results. They want people to go to Washington and bring something home for them. And that includes funding for the district. It includes transparency. It includes a reformed Congress. These are some of the things that they want to see, and he hasn't done anything to deliver it.
Wow, what a waste of space.
I think that in general, those are words that have been used to describe him. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate, especially we are coming up on a midterm election, of course, in November. And what's interesting about this one is we already know what's going to happen should Democrats take back the House,
Correct.
right? They have made it very clear that their only really H.R. 1 is to impeach Donald Trump and try to stop him from accomplishing any of the work that he's been working towards. So do you think that colors the way that people look at the candidates in congressional races, knowing that is really the one goal of members of Congress, as opposed to what can they do for our district here at home?
There are always going to be people who, when they see the name Trump, they see red. And it works for that group of people. It motivates the base for Democrats. I live in a very, very purple district. We are a 3.5% spread between Democrat and Republican. This district will come down to a few hundred votes. We have 4.1% AIP, American Independent Party voters that generally caucus with Republicans. So it's going to be folks that are NPP, like I used to be, or in the middle that will ultimately decide this race. They are not the ones that see red when they see Trump's name. And so I don't think it will be effective for Democrats to do anything to actually win these races, because they're not providing an alternate form of governance. They're just saying, we want to stop Trump. And sure, there are people that are upset with things that are happening with Trump. I think that that's fair to acknowledge. But ultimately, he won on an American referendum on immigration and the rule of law. And the Democrats are not proposing anything except for going back on that. Open the borders and empty the jails and defund the police is still the core cry of this wild progressive wing of the party. And so for anybody who's in the middle, they're living in a country that they're kind of feeling like, actually, I do feel a little bit safer than I did before. I do feel like I'm better off. I just got a tax refund that made a difference. The more that Republicans continue to focus on delivering for the American people, the less teeth those arguments have. And it would be incredibly disruptive here and on the world stage to have a presidential impeachment. And ultimately, we don't really get that excited about changing in between elections. That's why you see a lot of this backlash toward gerrymandering, because this idea of midterm changes, it's already hard enough, this, for everything that you do. It's impossible to keep track of what's happening on a day-to-day basis, much less to think about changing a president in the middle of his term. And that impeachment, by the way, will fail. It will be political theater. And so what are the Democrats offering other than that? Just a waste of the American public's time. That's it.
Jenny, as an out-of-the-closet Republican,
yes.
You're running for Congress as a Republican. How will you appeal to those independent voters, those Democrat voters who have watched their current congressman just honestly operate almost as a lame duck, if not worse?
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, I believe that all data is local. So you can look at a macro, look at a poll, but what you really need to do is call people. So every Monday I get on the phone, we send text messages out. When people write us back, I call them. And I listen to what people are saying. So what I'm going to tell you is coming from the conversations that I'm having with people. They want to know who is in charge. They want to understand what I'm going to do for them. They would like to know that we have an accessible office, that if they need something, they can call us. So it comes back to the basics of just political operations. At the end of the day, I need to be everywhere all at once. I need to make sure that people feel like our campaign is accessible and that their needs, whatever they might be, will be listened to and considered. And that I'm not going to just go to Congress, vote down the ticket for the party line, and build some kind of political career, which, by the way, I never wanted. I didn't want to be in politics. This is worse in every way than what I was doing in the private sector. It's terrible. And it's so important. It's so valuable and so necessary that it's worth it. But that maintaining that connection with people, with where they are, with what they're concerned about, with ensuring that we're advocating for that, and even doing basic things like coming back into the district, right? Dave doesn't hold town halls. When he's there, he doesn't take tough questions. We have to be able to listen effectively on the ground. And then also, I think the issues that I'm pursuing are issues that matter to the district. We want financial transparency. The only people who disagree with that are the fraudsters and the criminals, right? And so a lot of these issues that we have to pick right now are good for everyone. And they are reform-oriented, right? No insider trading for Congress. Come on. Why can't we get this passed? You immediately prosecute a guy who's in the military who leaks classified information through a bet. The exact same thing should happen with any member of Congress. And so that kind of accountability is something that I think will help deliver for the district what they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Let's talk about the fun stuff.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about CalDoge.
Okay, amazing. Let's go.
Steve Hilton created CalDoge. He's not waiting to be elected, which I believe that he has a very good chance of happening. I like that he says, as I tell him, he's operating as if he is already in the position. And that's so good for our state. CalDoge has been a gift, truly. And you are the executive director. This is so fabulous. I want to read for my listeners the mission, because we think it's just rooting out, fraud, waste, and abuse, but it goes so much beyond that. The mission says a key focus will be government reform, including identifying every opportunity to reduce or eliminate the size and scope of state agencies, end duplication across state, regional, county, and local governments, and roll back bureaucratic and regulatory structures that drive up costs for families and businesses. I could not love this anymore. What a need this is filling. Tell us about how you came to CalDoge and about some of the work that you guys are doing there.
Why I'm so excited about Steve, and ultimately why I got really excited about running for governor in the first place, is not just that they're the figurehead of the state, but they're actually the head of the entire administrative state of California, which includes right now at least, we don't even know if we found them all, 242 agencies, hundreds of positions that are appointed, and thousands of staff. And that actually represents a system in California that is designed to feed itself, not to help the people of California. It has been completely gone off the rails. And so, for the reform, the government reform piece really came from the first place that we knew the issue was, which we know that there is waste in California. We know, we've heard it from whistleblowers. Steve and I, from traveling anywhere in the state, could tell you that people can tell us that there's issues. And those issues come from that administrative branch. But what fixes it has to be the same as the source of the issue. And so the two pieces of what we're doing right now are a fraud, waste, and mismanagement investigations department. We have over 2,000 investigations. Over 2,000 people have trusted us with their stories in under 12 weeks. This is absolutely insane to me. And we're seeing crazy things that are out in the marketplace, like in LA County, where we're sitting right now. They have 5 fraud and waste investigators. They conduct 2 to 3 investigations a year. They get 700 to 800 complaints. So we know that there is fraud and waste in California, and they're not being investigated. That's why people are coming to us. But again, once we find that there is, for example, wide-scale hospice fraud, you get everybody who was perpetrating it, but you have to stop it going forward. And so you need different oversight, you need different data, you need different policing, and you honestly need different enforcement ultimately. And so we in the Government Reform Division just released our first report, which was on the energy issues. A lot of people's complaint in California is our energy is too expensive. It is too expensive. We pay on average 34 cents a kilowatt hour. When I charge my Tesla, it's 55 cents a kilowatt hour. The average in other states that are well governed is 17 cents. The average in America is half of what it is. And great states that have embraced nuclear and other forms of power are at 12 or 10 cents a kilowatt hour. That's a fifth. Just divide your bill by 5, and that's what you get if you move to another place. And so when people talk about this very real decision of staying or in California or leaving, energy prices are one of those. Well, we found out we have 35 times, not 35% more, but 35 times the number of people who work in our energy division. That naturally means that everybody wants to get their piece of any decision. So it slows everything down. It is incredibly costly. And we, with the reduction just in overlapping function for these 4 organizations, could cut your electricity bill by a quarter, by 25%. And this bloat has just continued and continued. So again, that's administrative action. On day 1, Steve could do that. Yeah. And so what we've really begun to do is not just to, and by the way, when Steve called me, he asked me originally if I wanted to be on the advisory board for CalDoge. And I said, no, I don't do advisory boards. But if you'll let me run it, I want to make it real. So I don't just want to have talking points or ideas or a plan. This is not just a pre-government plan. I want to find fraud and waste now. I want to have a clear pathway to government reform later. And when we agreed on that, it was off to the races. By the way, we thought that it would take until now-ish for people to start to pay attention. It was a second. It was a nanosecond, because we are ready. We're in an age of accountability. You saw this with the downfall of Swalwell. When people see the truth, they know what it looks like and they embrace it. And when they see the truth that we are telling them about where the money is going to all of these nonprofits and what they're spending it on, which, by the way, they've been so brazen that they've disclosed it themselves. We just have to go look for it. They've told you we're hiring illegal immigrants for get out the vote, breaking federal law, breaking California law, where you're not allowed to do that. But they told us because they never thought they would get caught. And so we're just in this incredible opportunity where we have not just California resources and eyes and interest, but national resources and interest. Because again, going back to budgets and everything that's flowing out of Washington, California is our biggest line item. The most money in the nation comes here, and the most of it also gets wasted here. And so we have to fix that.
You rarely see in the political realm a response, a solution timed so well. We're very reactive politically, especially when we get to Congress, right?
Yes.
Things take forever. The wheels move very slowly. But CalDoge met the moment right when everyone started saying, hey, we need Doge in California.
Right.
We need it in Minnesota. We need it in California. And then you guys were on the scene. It was really fun to watch, that immediate solution to such a big need. And I love the website says that the total fraud uncovered for CalDoge already is $682 million.
Yeah, more than that now.
More now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll give you just a couple of the fun facts, and then I'll tell you the story of how it actually happened. So I actually started working on CalDoge a year ago after Doge in DC began, because I knew that there were issues in California, but I didn't know, like I mentioned earlier, that the fraud and waste was the same source, and that so much fraud was there. I knew that we wasted money in California. I knew that we had inefficient and poor management here. I had no idea we had systems of fraud intentionally set up to benefit the Democrat machine. And a lot of people felt like we as Republicans were working so hard and not getting anywhere. Well, this is why. Our taxpayer dollars are going to fund Get Out the Vote for Democrats, and they've made it entirely legal in California. However, it often does break federal law. And so we had 3 things lined up that really were the recipe for success. Number 1, we had a playbook that said, instead of being polite, we're not going to wait for these issues to come out and go through prosecution. We're going straight to the public, and we're going to tell them, this is what's happening. Are you okay with it? And when they get outraged, they start doing stuff. They call their representatives. They go to the media. They share more stories about what's happening, and that amplifies the message. And when you're an outsider party like we are in California, we cannot play by the nice, friendly rules. We have to go rogue, and we have to explain to the public directly, this is what's happening. So that was factor 1. Factor two is we have a friendly DOJ. So we called them and we said, what do you need for prosecution? And so we worked backwards, which had never been done before. Usually fraud reports come from a complaint that moves forward. No, in this situation, we said, hey, what do you need to go send people to jail? We know this is what everybody wants. They want handcuffs. They want raids. They want it to stop. They don't just want us to tell them that there's a problem. They want it to be fixed. This is where we are. And so we started with that in mind. And actually, even in the process of that happening, we found out that their threshold for prosecution was about $1.5 million. JD Vance came in just 2 weeks after we started and said, actually, I'm going to lower that to 0. Anything that is fraud, we will go after it. And that immediately began to change the conversation as well. So that was the second piece. And then the third piece was this incredible public response that really started with the rise of investigative journalism through Nick Shirley's work in Minnesota. And just, potentially by a stroke of luck, but also I think it was providence. On Monday, we did the press conference for CalDoge. On Wednesday, Nick Shirley arrived in California. And I had his phone number and we coordinated on his very first effort. And we began to help him and other investigative journalists with data. So the stories are not all CalDoge stories. We don't want to own it. This is a people of California thing. We want everyone everywhere to know where fraud is happening and how to stop it. And we are not centralizing it. We're not closing it down. So we embrace and celebrate the fact that other people in many places are finding stories, breaking stories. And that's a part of what's fueling the fire. Because I think in other situations, people have tried to make it governmental agency style where you run everything through a gatekeeper. We just tore the gates off the building. And we said, hey, this is the moment we're going after it. And we're not going to leave anything untouched.
Yeah, it's a really strategic model. And I think that speaks to kind of the climate of politics in general right now. We're kind of breaking out of the business as usual, typical political bureaucracy and cleaning house. And I love it. One thing I haven't heard people touch on, and it's sort of just taking a step back and looking at all this fraud and corruption as a whole, is it seems to be that the agencies that are being defrauded, the work, the needs, the resources are all targeted toward our most vulnerable people. It's hospice, it's Medicaid and Medicare, it's children, it's fire victims, it's the homeless. Like, who are these people, Jenny Rae? Like, who does this? And what are the consequences going to be for people who are discovered to have defrauded and scammed children and homeless and fire victims?
Yeah, so the consequences are jail. But who does this are people who somehow do one of two things. They either delude themselves into believing that they'll eventually get around to solving the problem. So they're making a ton of money and building giant organizations and getting applause at galas because they're on their way to somewhere that they're never arriving, right? We have a homeless issue. We've spent $24 billion attempting to impact homelessness. We are worse than when we began, but we feel like somehow we're learning something. We're on our way. We're doing, so they've comforted themselves in process, which is a very government way of thinking about things. And what we're tired of is being like, oh, the process is taking a long time. No, sorry, we just want results. We are an impatient generation. We want results. We want to see the differences in what's happening, and that will have to mean that people will go to jail. They will have to go to jail under whatever law we can prosecute them for, and many times they're, like I mentioned earlier, protected by the legislature in California writing laws to keep them safe. But they are breaking federal law. And so we have an advantage right now with the DOJ. We have a friendly DOJ who cares about the rule of law and wants to prosecute these issues, and that's where we're going after it. But that's it. That's, to clean house, first of all, we have to bring this story to the public. Right now, I don't think you would open a hospice in California that was fraudulent. You know that the eyes of the world are on that issue. That's one way that you keep the bad actors out. But also, we have to demand results. Because when we spend money and we just let people get away with this over and over and over again, they prey on the story of the most vulnerable. And they do it through law, too. In fact, just real quickly, I was in a museum, and this is one of the first times that my radar went up, and I said, oh, there's something wrong here. There was a sign on the wall that said this building of this museum, this very fancy museum with a huge endowment, had a building that was paid for by our Parks and Water Bond, which was a Proposition 26. And I stood there looking at the sign saying, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with this because we as a people in California, if you ask us to fund homelessness, you know what we're going to do? We're going to write that check. We're going to go to the gala. We're going to sign up for it. We will sign that yes in the propositions, and we will say we're going for it. This is one of the reasons why people have to understand the basis of politics, because if you don't know who's behind it, you don't understand what they're actually going to do. Well, every one of those piles of money, cannabis tax, solar panels, cannabis tax was supposed to go to substance abuse prevention. It's not. It's going to Democrat get out the vote. But you and I would both say we think substance abuse prevention is a good thing. The same thing with solar panels. Sure, should we give solar panels to people to drive down their crazy cost of electricity? Okay, we'll sign up for that. But then 928 million of those dollars went to Democrat get out the vote. And so all of these pots of money are being sequestered legally in California. But again, they're breaking federal law, and we have to go after it to make sure now is the time for reform and it never happens again.
Gosh. It is just everywhere.
It is.
In this state
I literally
now.
thought there were a couple of big places, and California was a little bit behind. It is. And also when people talked about corruption in California, what I thought it looked like was you give money to your buddy's nonprofit, and they give you money back through a campaign donation. It's much more institutionalized than that. It's I give money to your organization in order to have you exchange the promise that you will work to get me elected. That work will be worth more than the money that I gave you. And then when I'm back in office, I will write you another check. And so it's way more than it was originally.
Incredible. We're talking about the fraud. We're talking about the corruption. I want to touch on the waste for just a second here. You know, the state of California is now being forced to return over $1 billion in federal healthcare funds that were spent on services for illegal immigrants. Last month, Newsom's Department of Finance made accounting errors regarding CalPERS, the CalPERS program, payments totaling roughly $2 billion. So we have a lot of financial mismanagement as well. And when you couple this with all of the fraud being uncovered, all of the abuses, the corruption, our state was just categorized as functionally bankrupt. Yet the sitting governor, Gavin Newsom, and others use the fact that the state of California is called the fourth largest economy in the world as almost a shield from that.
We're fine because
Okay.
that's exactly how they think about it.
I want to get your opinion specifically because you have such great expertise here. We're a financial wreck.
We are.
We're functionally bankrupt. Can we legitimately and factually still call ourselves the fourth largest economy when so much of it is debt and bankruptcy?
So what the reason that we are the fourth largest economy in the world is the GDP of our net creators, right? So NVIDIA, right now, one of the world's most valuable companies, or depending on the day, the world's most valuable company based in California, is a large portion of that. And we are over-indexed toward these creators, but it says nothing about what we spend. Mm-hmm. And so you can live in a gorgeous home and not be able to afford it. That's exactly what we are in California. And so we have the revenue that looks like we're making a lot of money. You can make $1 million and spend $2 million and still look like a millionaire, but you're not. You're functionally negative $1 million in the hole. What we do in California is we just fudge the math. We say, oh, we don't really have to fund our pension all the way. We'll just pretend that we're fine now and we'll fund it later.
We'll never pay the pensions.
We will never pay into the pensions. We'll just hold back a little bit of that money for now and later and forevermore. And we are destroying our entire state infrastructure and the people who have funded California for a long time. We're running them out of town. And so, yeah, we have a revenue problem in the state, and it has nothing to do with our GDP. In fact, what people should be asking is, why are we not number 3 in the world? Right? Why are we not actually unleashing more innovation in California? Because we should be ahead of Japan. It should be the US as a whole, China, and then California. And we're not actually going after aggressively what we could go after. And so they're being, touting the success of what functionally was built under Republican governors and Republican legislatures, what built Silicon Valley, what built the creator model, not what is happening today. And we won't see the effects of it immediately. We're only now starting to see these destructions of our public school systems, people just leaving in droves, and the people that are leaving California. We're only now beginning to see what that's doing to our state. And they're not planning for it. The budget goes up and up and up every year. Meanwhile, the revenue goes down and down and down. And so you have to dip into something, and they're dipping into these places, just fudging math. And it is a disaster waiting to happen.
Calling the state an economic 9.5 earthquake waiting to happen might be the understatement, because when you put all these things together in combination, and the fact that we are running the billionaires and a lot of the centimillionaires out of the state as well, they're who political leadership currently is relying on to backfill a lot of this debt,
Yes.
a lot of this fraud, and to fund a lot of services for illegal migrants. Do you think that our economic standing as number 4 is going to slip then even further when we take all of this into consideration?
We're still a part of the U.S. and we still have the most incredible labor market in the world. There isn't another place, Texas and Florida, are trying to compete, but California is still the creator economy. But again, that's only the value of the companies that are here. It has, and so far, the Democrats have not been able to tax value. But with the billionaire tax, they're trying. But here's the problem with their math, just to get very basic with it. They look at the number of billionaires that are here. They calculate how much value those billionaires have, not the revenue that they're creating, but the value that they have. They look at that as a honeypot that they want to go after, and they don't factor in what we have to do in basic 101 financial modeling, which is if you raise the prices, people run away. And so they assume that they're going to get all of that money because everyone is captive to California. And they are demonstrating in droves that they are not captive to California. They will happily leave if you force them out. And so that exact same calculus is the problem with everything from top to bottom. So it's not that we're at risk of necessarily becoming the 5th largest or 8th largest economy in the world right away. Over time, we'll see that 10, 20 years potentially. We still have incredibly valuable companies that are here. It's just that the value of those companies doesn't matter to fund the government. It's on paper. These are functional numbers on paper. It's not what people are actually making in terms of income, which is the primary way that we fund the government. And so they're taking credit for something that they didn't do. It doesn't matter for what they want to do. And they're just looking for more pots of money. And they're assuming that everyone is shackled to California. And they're getting this wake-up call as people are leaving dramatically. So I'm the one who's saying the opposite. I'm saying run to California. We've got to save it now. It matters to the nation. We have to be the world's 3rd largest economy. That's what we should be going for. And by the way, these crazy people who are doing the bad math, you should, if you guys are good at math, if you're listening, get involved, right? Step up to these jobs. If you're retired as a CPA, go work for government. Help us out. Because if we have people who functionally couldn't do something else well, who are running the numbers, they're not going to do it right. They're going to make budget errors, billions of dollars. They're going to not run the numbers correctly. And we need the best people on the planet running California. We really do.
Well, California needs you, and your district really needs you. Big question on the table. If you win your congressional race, will you still lead CalDoge?
Absolutely. So I probably won't be in day-to-day leadership for CalDoge. Everything I've ever done, every business I've run, I've bought 3 businesses. I run it for the beginning. I set up a template and other people take on the leadership after that. In fact, I'm really good at scaling and other people are better than me at managing. And so we need reform. Right now, that will be my job in Congress. It will be my primary job. But what happens at CalDoge won't go away, which is a concern of a lot of people, because what we're building is a durable template to continue to find it. And trust me, there will still be fraud by the end of this year, and we will have to continue to push on reform. So we will do everything we can this year to make a generational difference in California. But that work will continue just in a different form when I'm in Congress, because I'll be in charge of making sure that everybody knows where the money comes from and managing the purse strings.
Well, I'm sure glad to hear it. Jenny Rae, you are such a champion. You're a fighter for the state, for your district, for your community. I think that a vote for you would do so much good for the 47th, for our state as a whole. And with the way you're leading CalDoge, to set this wonderful example and template for other states to follow suit. So I wish you all the success in the world as your jungle primary approaches in about a week here. For people who haven't voted yet, please vote. And if you want more information, it's jennyrayca.com. Do I have that right?
You got it.
Okay,
Nailed it
wonderful.
every way.
Well, I loved the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on Politically Basic
Thank
today.
you for having me on.
And thank you for joining us on this very special episode of Politically Basic, where we break down the basics of all political issues so that you get to decide. Make sure you're following us along with us on all socials at Politically Basic and at Being Kyle Campbell, and we will see you next time.